This was mine. Okay.
Oh.
Little update for you, because a lot of people were stressed out on the one pedal. And I can't believe you hit me in this sequence, because I was over here and now you're trying to keep me over here. I thought I was relaxing on the next one.
No. Keep the energy up.
Right. Okay. A lot of people have not driven the Taycan. Tons of people have driven a Tesla. Tesla used to have a mode that almost entirely turned off regenerative braking, but the way that the Tesla does regenerative braking and the way that the Taycan does regenerative braking are so different. It's a totally different implementation. And it could only have happened if you have two different companies that are prioritizing two completely different things. Now, plenty of people have adapted and have no problem and actually prefer one-pedal driving. That's fine. That's not what we're talking about here. All I'm trying to do is highlight the extent of the differences, to let you know that they are not commensurate, to let you know that I am not inventing this discrepancy, but that I'm driving the two cars and I'm doing the comparison and I'm telling you my impression and my preference. I realize that you can never have the regenerative braking completely off, but you can definitely on the Tesla diminish it significantly if you had the option and the button that you currently don't have, or that used to be there and then went away. The Taycan does also have some pretty intense regenerative braking, but it's when you press the brake. It is not...
So it's not really that one pedal assist.
It's not the one pedal. It has a one pedal version, but it's still way more subtle and less strong.
But you still need to use two pedals.
You use the
brake and the throttle.
You end up using the brake more. And as a consequence, in my opinion, you have a slightly more precise experience with your regenerative braking. That's just me. I'm going to go into this because this is an old article, but I just felt since I was talking about it, I really wanted, somebody's telling me my preference is wrong. Okay, just drive them both, blindfolded. And it also matters the other cars you drive, because I feel that the Taycan does a better job of mimicking other vehicles you would encounter that weren't Teslas. But anyways, this is an old article just to describe some of this difference and how Porsche decided to approach it. Their implementation of regenerative braking system for the Taycan is different than the systems on other electric vehicles available today. It's both very strong and very weak at the same time. It just depends on how you look at it. Porsche wanted to do two things when they were designing their regenerative braking system. By the way, shout out Inside EVs. First, they wanted to recuperate as much energy as possible, and they believe they achieved that goal. Porsche engineers have said that as much as 90% of the Taycan's braking will, on average, be achieved through regenerative braking. The Taycan is capable of generating up to 265 kilowatts into the battery pack, accomplished by adding the front motor's 175 kilowatt regeneration capability and the 90 kilowatt recuperated by the rear motor. To put the Taycan's 265 kilowatt regenerative braking potential into perspective, the Model 3 can generate a maximum of 77. That's 1/3 what the Taycan is capable of. 1/3. So it's not strictly an efficiency decision. Instead, it's a different implementation. And that's where I screwed up when I was first talking about it. I was like, oh, it's just strictly related to range, and they don't mind giving me poorer range in exchange for an experience I might prefer. No, get rid of that. It's regenerating tons of power. The range issues with the Taycan are definitely going to be elsewhere as a consequence of discovering this. It's just that the way you're regenerating is different.
Now, let me ask you a question. Or you want to continue?
I'm just let me get this next paragraph.
Yep.
Secondly, they wanted to make sure the Taycan would be well suited for high-speed driving on the Autobahn as well as for the track. Strong liftoff regeneration can be cumbersome when the vehicle is being driven at high speeds, and it can cost you lap time when you're running on a track. Okay, that's it. Now, granted, people can become proficient with the one-pedal driving, and the Plaid has done stupid numbers on the on the Nürburgring near the Autobahn. Granted, we don't know if software features existed in that particular run in order to disable the strength of liftoff regeneration. We don't know. But the point I'm trying to make here is that a race car has roll. A race car has the third setting. You take your foot off the accelerator. A race car has, and yes, there's engine braking and other factors, but they've just made this feel closer to whatever that experience is. And the brakes are amazing. It has ceramic brakes. The Plaid doesn't. You can do it aftermarket. It's not from the factory. So the brakes feel amazing to use and push and touch.
Now with the brakes, because of that one pedal feature, do you think Tesla had the brakes in mind where, you don't use it? That means that the wear and tear of the brakes are like, it kind of prolongs it, the braking.
Yeah, so
in the Tesla.
So what I was trying to say is that the Taycan is doing the same thing. It's just doing it when you press the brake pedal.
But that's what I mean. If you're using the brake
You're
pedal,
not using the brakes. You're just using the brake pedal. The initial phase of the brake pedal is regen braking. You got me?
I see.
Here,
I see.
if you scroll down, we'll go even deeper into it. Shout out DJ Medusa. Okay? What Porsche did, their implementation was a blended braking system. The liftoff regeneration is extremely mild, but the brake pedal regeneration is very strong. So electric vehicles like the BMW i3, Chevy Bolt can come to a complete stop with ever touching the friction brake pedal. This is important. It's so the difference between the pedal initiating the feeling.
That's what you want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is what the Taycan does. The liftoff regeneration force is milder than on other EVs. You can barely feel it with the vehicle slowing down while recuperating. It feels like a car coasting. It is still regenerating a little bit, but they've made it feel like a coast. However, when the driver presses the friction brake pedal, the Taycan doesn't actually actuate the friction brakes unless you need it to stop in a really short distance, like you slam on it. What is actually happening is the vehicle is stopping by using engine braking and recuperating at that. This is brilliant. This is exactly what I want. Well, thank God I actually have it, but it's in practice. Like, I actually hadn't read this article. I had just experienced the different vehicles and said, oh, this makes sense in my brain, this implementation.
Yes.
That this is like an action button. Now, by the way, like I said, this is more engagement, which if you had the mindset technologically that all input is error, then you would say to yourself, well, why would you want the extra step if that's your prerogative? If you enjoy driving, you might like the idea, much like some people say, oh, I want to drive a manual transmission. I feel I have more feel when I do that. Well, these cars are so stupid fast and so engaging, and the steering is so tight, and the Taycan feels sort of like a 911 in some ways, and I like that. I like the fact that it sort of feels like that, but it's not for everybody. And it's probably, arguably, a less efficient method because you're not always recuperating to the same extent, depending on the way you drive and depending on your coast to brake ratio. But it was cool to just get to the bottom of it in a well-described fashion. Shout out Inside EVs for putting all the details out there. But the Taycan has essentially 4 regenerative braking settings: lift-off, recuperation off, coasting; lift-off, recuperation on; auto recuperation with camera; and max recuperation used by all driver assistance features. The way this works, if you're doing something like an adaptive cruise, then it will use the regen automatically without you touching anything. Because your feet aren't near the pedals at this point. So now you can do it. And that's one moment where the Tesla is stupid smooth, is if you're in autopilot. If you're in autopilot, then this kind of like in town, especially in Plaid mode, obviously on the highway, it's more gradual anyways. In autopilot, the acceleration, deceleration outside of some malfunction, beautifully smooth. I'm talking about Model S. So, but totally different implementations. And it's not surprising that the pre-existing automaker, that the German automaker, who is still making combustion vehicles, who makes race cars, would take a different approach. It's not a surprise now that you read through, and they have multiple modes, so you can essentially kind of tune it to a certain extent. And I want more fine-tuning, ideally, on the Tesla. I don't necessarily need regen to be... I realize it can't be off, actually, completely, but just the old setting that used to be in there to minimize it. But the problem is I won't be regenning because when I use the brake, I'm using the actual brake. It's the implementation.
Yes.